Hey guys, Boston Ramos, and this Sunday the Miami Dolphins will be hosting the New York Jets. This game will kick off at 1 p.m. at Hard Rock Stadium, and the game is going to be played on December 8th. Uh, Game will be broadcasted on CBS, and man, oh man, it's going to be an interesting matchup. Surprisingly so, this is the Miami Dolphins' first opportunity to play at the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers at the helm as the quarterback for this Jets team. And it's kind of weird to say. He's been a Jet for 2 years. Obviously, he suffered that major injury week one of last season. And then this year, no injuries, clean bill of health, but not a great season for this New York Jets team. Right now, they're sitting at 3-9, 1-5 on the road. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are sitting at 5-7, not so far off in terms of wins and losses, but 3-3 at home. So that does favor this Dolphins team in terms of, home and away splits, so on and so forth. But yeah, crazy enough that, what is it now? 14 weeks into a 2 years into Aaron Rodgers' stint as a New York Jets quarterback, and it's the first time he's playing the Dolphins. At least as the Jets quarterback. When he was a Green Bay Packer quarterback, he was terrorizing this Miami Dolphins team. Now, with that being said, let's get into the game preview. Like I said, both of these teams below 500. Jets way far off from what their season expectations were, their goals, etc. This was a Jets team that one was aspiring at least to be in the playoffs and make a run. They definitely had Super Bowl aspirations. I think those have definitely gone to the wayside. You fire your head coach, you fire your general manager midseason. Not great signs from this Jets organization, and it's kind of fair in terms of how their season has gone. It's gone way off of expectation. Now, do I agree with the firing of Robert Saleh? Not so much, but I felt like him and Aaron Rodgers were butting heads. So I think for the future of Aaron Rodgers in New York, the owners and etc. made big-time decisions by letting go of Robert Saleh and also GM Joe Douglas. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the gambling lines for this game. The Dolphins are favored by 6 points in this one, so -6 for the Miami Dolphins, and then over-under set at 44.5. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are favored at -275 in this matchup for the money line. Meanwhile, the Jets are at +225. ESPN's matchup predictor has the Dolphins favored at 56% to the New York Jets 43.6. And then lastly, game time weather is looking like 79 degrees, partly cloudy. Last game, it was relatively colder, and it started heating up relatively quickly. So I'm not really expecting this one to be a little too chilly. Anything that's not 90 degrees and scorching hot outside is a lot better. This is a lot better than that. With that being said, let's talk about some injuries. Now, for this Jets team, there's a lot of injuries to get out through here. I'm going to cap them off at the beginning of November as far as they've been updating it. And then for the Dolphins, weekly injury reports since we talk about them each and every week. This being the first time we talk about the Jets, going to be a little bit more extensive with the injury history, like I just mentioned. But yeah, we'll start off with the Jets at Wes Schweitzer, offensive guard. He's on injured reserve with a hand injury. Then we also have Elijah Vera Tucker, offensive guard, is questionable for ankle injury. Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, also questionable with a toe injury. Morgan Moses, offensive tackle, questionable for shoulder injury. Xavier Newman, offensive guard, questionable, unlisted what is going on with him. CJ Mosley, linebacker, is out with a herniated disc in his neck. Alan Lazard, wide receiver, is on injured reserve with a chest injury. Cornerback Sauce Gardner is doubtful with a hamstring injury. Running back Brees Hall is doubtful as well with a knee injury. Quantez Stiggers, cornerback, is questionable with an undisclosed injury. Continuing on, we have Tyron Smith, offensive tackle. He's on injured reserve with a neck injury. And lastly, to round out the list, we have Jordan Travis, quarterback. He is out, dealing with some complications from his ankle injury that he suffered in his final season at FSU. Meanwhile, we talk about the Miami Dolphins injuries. We have Anthony Walker Jr., linebacker. He is questionable with a hamstring injury. Bradley Chubb, linebacker, is out with a knee injury. Still dealing with the ACL. I've been saying it a lot in these videos. He's still rehabbing it, technically. And I'm not saying that he's ready to play, but, it's hard for him to get into that mindset for a team that may not make the playoffs. He's trying to look out for himself in the future. Obviously, the Dolphins as well. He doesn't want to go out there and then risk further injury to his knee when he's had a lot of injury history. So let's see if the Dolphins can find the way to start stacking up these wins to close out the year. Best believe Bradley Chubb may more than likely be out there and help with a possible playoff push. Let's see what happens. Continuing on, we have Raheem Mostert, running back, is questionable with a hip injury. Kader Kohu, cornerback, is questionable with a back injury. Teron Armstead, offensive tackle, is questionable with an undisclosed injury. We also have Blake Ferguson, long snapper, is out with personal reasons. Cam Smith, cornerback, is on injured reserve with a shoulder injury. That's very unfortunate. Cameron Goddard, linebacker, is out with a kneecap injury. Still dealing with the injury he suffered at the end of the year against the Buffalo Bills. But let's see. He was available to return from injury reserve, hopefully this upcoming Monday. And last but not least, Tyus Bowser, linebacker, is on injured reserve with a knee injury. That's the latest updates from last week to this week. Now, guys, not much to say here. It's like I mentioned, kind of crazy playing Aaron Rodgers for the first time, and their season hasn't gone to what they aspired it to be. They've had quite a few one-score losses, and it's really been the determining factor on their poor season so far. You have one 1-point loss to Denver Broncos, a touchdown game loss to Minnesota in London, a field goal difference game against Buffalo, and a field goal difference as well against New England. Let's see what else. And a 1-point game against the Colts and a single touchdown game against Seattle Seahawks. So right there, you got about 5 games that did not go in the Jets' direction, and it could have closely meant. So, that's a tough pill to swallow for this Jets team. They're good enough to compete, but they're not good enough to necessarily close out games and get those big-time wins. And early on in the season, it was large, in fact, due part to Aaron Rodgers and making some crucial mistakes down the stretch of games, throwing some interceptions. Now, a lot of finger-pointing went on when those plays happened. And, you can argue some of them. Mike Williams ran the route twice, one time against the Bills and then the other, early on in the season, and then the other time against the Minnesota Vikings, so on and so forth. Those are tough situations, and the Jets just got to move on from it. Continuing on, circling back to the injuries, Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner, those guys being injured, not happy that they're injured. I would love to see the most competitive players out there, but it's a big swing. And then on top of that, almost their whole offensive line is banged up. So not looking good for this Jets team. Then you also add into the mix that CJ Mosley is out for this game. It's not looking good for this Jets team. Lots of injuries, lots of little things here and there that haven't gone their way. So let's talk about the keys to victory. So lastly, we're going to go with 3 keys to victory. First one is always get to the quarterback. It's always surrounding the quarterback, so it's either protect Tua or get to the opposing team's quarterback. And this week, we're facing Aaron Rodgers, who is a crafty guy. He will evade pressure and extend plays, and that is why it's crucial for these defensive ends, outside linebackers, to get Aaron Rodgers on the ground. Hoping for a big-time game out of Chop Robinson. His development has been pretty good, but he was stifled in that latest game against the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. So hopefully, he's made some adjustments and made the necessary moves to hopefully bring down Aaron Rodgers. He's an old guy. He's definitely lost a step, especially with dealing with that Achilles injury. But he can still find his way out of some trouble and make defenders miss. So really want to emphasize the Dolphins getting to Aaron Rodgers and really limiting his performance, because he's going to be the engine that makes that offense go for the New York Jets. Secondly, would love for the Dolphins to have a 100-yard rusher. And as the way the season's been going, it's been Achane. So Achane can finish out this game with over 100 yards on the ground. I think that would be helpful enough to put this Dolphins team in position to win this game. Now, if HN has, let's say, 130 scrimmage yards, not necessarily passing 100 rushing yards, but overall with receiving yards, he's around 130. I think that's a massive impact by Devon Achane. So let's see if he can contribute that much to this Dolphins team because, you know, there's already a lot of injuries on the Jets offensive line. So on the defensive side, really got to put that pressure on Aaron Rodgers, especially with no Brees Hall possibly back there. Definitely want to put as much pressure, limit any type of rushing attack that any of the other backs like Braylon Allen are going to have. And then on the other side of the ball, you want to run that ball. You want to just get in, get out of this game as quick as possible. Mostly throughout this season, I've been saying, hey, get Tyree, get Waddle involved. It's been shifting more to a running game because, look, it's getting late in the year. If the Dolphins even have a remote chance of making the playoffs, the running game needs to be good. Because guess what? They're going to go on the road, and they're going to face teams in cold climates. And what do you do in those conditions? You run the freaking ball. So Dolphins need to establish a good running identity heading into this last stretch of the season because they're playoff hopefuls. You know, currently as they think. As they stand, a little far off. Last but not least, I would love to see about 250-yard passing game by Tua. As much as I've been just pounding the rock and saying, hey, Dolphins got to run the ball. I would love to see Tua just slinging it and taking advantage of some of the defensive players missing, like C.J. Mosley and Sauce Gardner possibly. So if the Dolphins can capitalize that on just all phases of the offensive side of the ball, that would be great. I think getting Aaron Rodgers will be big. So get to Aaron Rodgers, run the ball efficiently with HN, and get Tua in a good rhythm. I think this offense can really make some damage. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this game preview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will catch you guys after the game, and it's going to be a fun home game, one of the last few. Got another one after this, but yeah, well, let me know what you guys think of this upcoming matchup against the New York Jets, and let's go Fins. Peace out, y'all.